Board request.
Yes. Request approved. Okay. First of all, to all the new people who have joined the Fusus group, ahlan wa sahlan, and it's really nice to see all of you. And big welcome. Some of you I probably haven't seen before, so if you want to introduce yourselves at some point, please do so and go ahead. And if not, that's fine. We'll just get to know you later on, inshallah. So we are in the middle of Sheath, which is the second chapter of the Fusus al-Hikam. And if you would like to catch up on the previous sessions we have done, you only have about like what, 25, 26 other videos to watch? All of them in an hour and a half, but quite honestly, you don't have to. So yeah, we're in the middle of Sheath and we're probably going to finish it. Not today, but maybe in about 2-3 more lessons, inshallah. So yeah, is there anything anyone wants to ask just briefly before we start?
Sorry, what will you finish? You said next 2-3 days?
Yeah, Sheath.
Are you starting from the beginning of the Fusus al-Hikam or from the middle or?
No, we are carrying on because we've been doing this course, the Fusus al-Hikam, for the past several months. So we are going to continue from where we left off, and we will finish the second chapter, which is called Sheath.
Yeah.
In about 2-3 more lessons, inshallah. Or
so
3-4.
Started from the end towards the beginning?
No, we're carrying on the same way. Right now, we're in the middle of Sheath, and we're going to finish it. Excuse me, we're going to finish it soon, inshallah. So, hi Munira, كيفك? Good to see you. Good to see you.
أنا ملخبطة بدك المظبوط إن شاء الله راح أفهم عليكم.
لا بسيطة أي شيء anything you want just ask me.
We're starting Sufi part of knowledge next week.
The week after. So the way, because sorry, our schedules are a bit tight, so that's why we're arranging the sessions in this way. We're going to have a session every other week, but every other week it's going to change. So this time is Fusus al-Hikam. That means in 2 weeks' time, if I understood Joshua correctly, in 2 weeks' time it will be Sufi path of knowledge.
So we're starting in 2 weeks' time Sufi path of knowledge.
Yeah, inshallah, yes. I
see. Okay, and what about your book? When
that's going to start May 7th.
Okay.
Yeah, that's May 7th. In case anyone doesn't know, I'll be giving a course on my upcoming, well, it's already published, but I'll be giving a course on my book. So if you have any more questions, let me know. Yeah, and maybe I'll say a few more words about it at the end of class if you like. Yeah, okay. Any other questions?
Okay. No.
Yes, please. Irvina, go ahead. You're welcome.
I was reading some ilahis in Albanian from the Sufis in Albania, and
sure.
And I noticed like 2 of the Sufis there have said something similar with Ibn Arabi in a way. Like one has said that I'm the secret of Surah Ikhlas, and the other has said that I was before Adam. You know, when the Prophet ﷺ says a similar thing with Ibn Arabi that you mentioned last time. Just let me say. I was a prophet while Adam was between water and clay.
Yes.
And, yeah, this Sufi says as well that I was when Adam was between water and clay, or something similar. I was wondering, is there a similarity between their maqams or their spiritual levels, or is it something that the awliya of Allah can achieve by the mercy of Allah, or is it just
Sufi texts are, as I'm sure you guessed, notoriously difficult to read for so many reasons. And not the least being because each Sufi has their own personal experience, right? And each person is a unique individual who's going to give you their own unique perspective on any given issue, right? So this is no different. I would have to know more about the Albanian Sufi you're talking about to understand it a bit better. But if we take Ibn Ari's perspective, there's only one person in creation who can have that maqam of being a prophet when Sayyidina Adam alayhi was between water and clay, and that is Rasulullah. He was a prophet when Adam was between clay and water. In other words, he was still not yet made. Only Rasulullah has that maqam. Now, this does not necessarily entail that the Albanian Sufi you're talking about is a fraud, is lying. It doesn't have to entail something negative, but it would require another interpretation. For example, one possible interpretation is that he is actually speaking as Rasulullah with in a phenomenon that's called fana fi Rasul. And this happens a lot to the Sufis. So they say something, and they're speaking in the first person point of view, using the words Rasulullah, but they're not narrating a hadith, but they're speaking as him because they have fana in the messenger. And that has happened. So this is like one possible interpretation.
He didn't say that he was a prophet, but he was before. So that's just a slight difference. But
yeah.
It makes sense.
Sure. But then what did he mean when he said I was alive, or does he say what he was?
I think that it was just like existing in a way.
Existing, yeah, okay.
But I need to check the detail. I just like
sure, yeah.
Came to me right now.
Yeah. No, it's just like there's so many ways to look at this thing. Unless you know that Sufi like very well, right? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, interesting. There's always room for more confusing topics with the Sufis, mashallah. Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. Okay. Any other questions? Okay,
Assalamu alaikum, Faris.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله. سيدنا محمد رازي, اتفضل.
I hate to get stuck on logistics, but I was thinking that the Sufi path of knowledge would be starting on the May 5th, and then we would be meeting once every fortnight. That is like every other week to work on it, right?
That is correct, yes. Well, so actually every fortnight it changes. So now, a fortnight from today, it'll be Sufi Path of Knowledge. A fortnight from Sufi Path of Knowledge, it's going to be Fusus. And it will alternate like that.
Okay, fine.
Every other week.
Yeah, also, will you be designating as like sections of the text, like chapters, so that we come prepared to class?
For what? The Sufi Path of Knowledge? No.
Read a certain portion of it. Yeah.
No, so
the Sufi path of knowledge, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to designate specific reading. I'll just tell you which chapter to look at in general, and then we see how far we get into it, because it's not a formal course. It's more of a book reading club. For the Sufi Path Knowledge. Like it's not a formal course. So yeah, that's it. All right, then let's get started, inshallah. Okay. Bismillah. Can I get a volunteer? If you're seeing the screen right now, then I'd like you to read Zanira. Bismillah, go ahead. So from وَأَمَّا الْمِنْحُ الْإِسْمَائِيَّةِ up to the bottom, which is وَمَا أَشْبَهَ ذَلِكَ.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وأما المنح الأسمائية فاعلم أن منح الله تعالى خلقه رحمة منه بهم، وهي كلها من الأسماء، فإما رحمة خالصة كالطيب من الرزق اللذيذ في الدنيا الخالص يوم القيامة، ويعطى ذلك الاسم الرحمن، فهو عطاء رحماني، وإما رحمة ممتزجة كشرب الدواء الكرية الذي يعقب شربه الراحة، وهو عطاء إلهي، فإن العطاء الإلهي لا يمكن إطلاق عطائه منه من غير أن يكون على يد سادن من سدنة الأسماء، فتارة يعطي الله العبد على يد الرحمن فيخلص العطاء من الشوب الذي لا يلائم الطبع في الوقت أو لا ينيل الغرض وما أشبه ذلك.
Thank you very much. So we are returning to the subject of the divine gifts, right? That blue line's interesting. It's not from me. Yeah, I don't know who's doing that.
It's Mom.
Sorry about that. I was just wiping my screen and he ended up going down. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
I don't know how to undo that.
It's fine. Just leave it. It's one of the gifts of the chapter, so it's fine. Okay, can I get a second reader as well, if possible? Otherwise, we'll carry on. Okay. So we spent a lot of time talking about the function of Ibn Arabi as the Khatam al-Muhammadiyya and the Khatam al-Awliya and what that meant. But the chapter started off by talking about the main essence of the fuss, which is about divine gift giving and how it occurs, right? And this is connected to Faris Adam alayhi salam because it's connected to the function of being Khalifatullah ala ard, right? So that connects back to Faris Adam. The chapter opened with what it means to give a gift from the divine essence. So if you want to know more about that, you should revisit the first few classes on this fuss. So now, after that interruption about the Khatam al-Muhammadiyya, he returns back to the subject of the divine gift giving, but from the names, right? So what is the difference between the essence and the names, right? So the essence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the holy essence that we cannot know and we cannot approach, right? So when he gives his gift from the essence, it is akin to a tajalli. It's akin to a tajalli. And like Sidi Ali Hussein said, it's as if he gives you the entire thing from the wellspring of the gift. It's as if he gives you from all of it. But when it is a gift of the name, a specific divine name, then it's going to be a specific gift. It's not like the gift of the essence. So what are the divine names, right? The divine names are what you would have probably heard of, like his 99 names. Allah is Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر and الرافع and المذل and النور and so on, الجميل, so on and so forth, up to 99 or even more universal names. Of course, what the Akbarians say is that Allah has 4 mother names. So these names are the names on which the whole cosmos is built, and then the rest of the names arise out of these names, right? And so the 4 mother names are Al-Hayy, Al-Alim, and Al-Murid, and Al-Qadir. Then if you add to that the other 3 names on top of that, you get Al-Sami', Al-Basir, and Al-Mutakallim. 7 primary names, and if you remove the last 3, it's 4 mother names. The entire cosmos is built upon these 4 names. What does that mean if I say it's built upon it? Because it's a weird expression, right? It's a technical expression belonging to the Akbarian school, and it's almost like you're getting into a little bit of philosophy. What does that mean? It means that when we talk about these divine attributes, there can be nothing but divine attributes in existence. There can be nothing but divine attributes in existence, because why? It's one wujud. There's only one wujud and it belongs to Allah. Then this wujud, with a capital W, discloses and reveals itself in any way, shape, or form with respect to the locus of disclosure, right? Which are the things, the ayan thabita. So anything you see around you, by definition, belongs to a divine name. And a very simple example, if you've taken the course on the life of Shaykh al-Akbar Ibn al-Arabi, Ibn Arabi is one day walking in the marketplace and he finds a fish, and it's a disgusting fish, right? And he starts walking around with it. And so his friends are surprised. And they say, why are you doing that? Is this a form of mujahada? Are you trying to put yourself down in order to improve spiritually? So then his sheikh at the time, who was Abu al-Abbas al-Urayani, right? And his mashrab was Isawi. He said, why don't we ask him and let's see what he has to say about that. So they asked him, and they asked him if he's doing it for the sake of mujahada. And he said, no, it's nothing to do with that. That didn't even cross my mind. All I saw was that Allah did not prevent himself from creating this rather unwholesome, stinky fish, right? So we might denigrate it, but Allah made it. So if he did not disdain to make it, then who am I to refuse to hold it, right? And that's because that fish has something called a mustanad ilahi, which is it has a foundation in a divine name, a foundation in divinus. It has a mustanad ilahi. So it comes from a particular divine name that made that fish. And the fish derives its existence and its source from one of these divine names, which by definition means it makes it holy, even if you can't see that, right? So whatever you look around you, there's only divine names. And what those divine names are creating and giving, right? So in this part of the fuss, he is talking about the gifts of the names and how they are a mercy from Allah to his creation, right? And so it's from the names that we come to know him. Now, he gives you the example of Ar-Rahman, right? When we're talking about Rahma, right? So he can give you a name either wholly or in part. And Rahma is a really good example. You can receive something from the name Ar-Rahman as a mercy, purely as a mercy, which has no mixture of anything of ghadab or wrath or anything painful with it. Or you can receive, or you can receive a gift of mercy that has some kind of pain and suffering that is wrapped up with it and tied to it, and it functions like a medicine, right? Ad-dawa al-karih, right? This kind of like distasteful, unpleasant medicine, right? Anything that happens to you, it is a medicine that purifies you, purifies your body, purifies your heart. And so it's unpleasant, but it's necessary to take, right? And so as a result of that medicine, of course, you experience healing, and that's where the rahmah comes from. And so he says it's not possible. He uses this interesting word. I don't think it's common. He says that it's not possible to receive any gifts from the divine names, right? Except, or rather, it's not possible to receive anything from existence except through a divine name that acts as a guardian, right? على يد ساد من سدنة الأسماء, from one of the guardians of the names, because the name is a guardian for that gift. It is the one that is responsible for that gift. So you know that whatever you receive in existence, it comes from a divine name. فتارة يعطي الله العبد على يد الرحمن فيخلص العطاء من شوب الذي لا يلائم الطبع في الوقت أو لا ينيل الغرض وما أشبه ذلك. So sometimes you'll get something, if it's a gift from Ar-Rahman, it can still feel unpleasant to your human nature and not necessarily grant you what you were looking for. It falls short of your goals, but it's still from Ar-Rahman, right? Are there any questions, or can I move on?
I just had a slight clarificatory question.
Sure, yes.
In the beginning, you said there is a difference between getting a gift from the unknowable essence of Allah and the gift of the divine names. So I didn't really get the distinction. Could you?
Yeah, can I say that question to the end of the lesson, right? So that we don't get too sidetracked. But just do remind me, please.
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, by the way. And that's a good question. Yes. Okay. If no more questions, then we'll carry on to the next section, right? So I'll move down. Right. Okay, this is good. Can I get one reader, please? So we'll start from وتارة يعطي الله على يد الواسع فيعم, and we'll finish at خزائنه. And if you have any of your microphones on, let's try to mute them, please, if you're not talking. All right. Okay. Yeah. Any volunteers?
Can I go ahead and say it?
Yeah, Imam, Bismillah, please go ahead.
وتارة يعطي الله على يد الواسع فيعم أو على يد الحكيم فينظر في الأصلح في الوقت أو على يد الوهاب فيعطي لينعم لا يكون مع الواهب تكليف المعطي له بعوض على ذلك من شكر أو عمل أو على يد الجبار فينظر في الموطن وما يستحقه أو على يد الغفار فينظر المحل وما هو عليه فإن كان على حال يستحق العقوبة فيستره عنها أو على حال لا يستحق العقوبة فيستره عن حال يستحق العقوبة فيسمى معصوما ومعتنى به ومحفوظا وغير ذلك مما شاكل هذا النوع والمعطي هو الله من حيث ما هو خازن لما عنده في خزائنه.
Yes, beautiful. Thank you so much. That's great. Does anyone else want to try this? Okay. So now he's going through examples of other divine names, right? And by the way, just a small point, especially to the newcomers of the class, like please don't hesitate to ask any questions you'd like to, and don't feel shy. Yeah, just whenever you want, ask what you would like to or don't understand. Okay, so he's going through examples of other names, divine names, right? And so he is showing you how each thing has to come from a divine name. If the gift comes from the name al-wasi', the vast, the expansive, then it necessarily encompasses everything that gift is for. So it encompasses either everyone or the entire locus it is dedicated to. أو على يد الحكيم فينظر في الأصلح في الوقت. And if the gift is coming from the wise, then the wise is the one who gives you the gift in the most opportune time and the best way possible. Now, hikmah is threefold. It is to do what is proper, for what is proper, as is proper. So if you like, it is three-dimensional. And so al-Hakim will do that. It'll give you the gift in the best way possible for the right time and the right circumstances, right? But if the gift comes, if the ata comes from al-Wahhab, then فيعطي لينعم لا يكون مع الواهب تكليف المعطي له, right? So if now we're talking about the spiritual path, right? Especially if you're a salik and you're walking the spiritual path. If you are walking this path, you pay attention to the divine name that is governing you at each moment, because you want to know how to respond. You want to know how to respond appropriately to each moment. So you are under a form of muraqabah, very intense muraqabah, waiting to see what Allah will do with you, right? Because there is no moment, there's no empty moment in existence. Existence doesn't have empty moments. So وَكُلْ يَوْمٍ هُوَ فِي شَأْنٍ. He is doing something with you every single day, every single moment, right? Therefore, you want to know how to respond to what he is doing with you and what he is doing to you in the right way for that moment. Because if you do that, then you are granted the reward that corresponds to that moment. If you do that, you're granted the insight that corresponds to that moment. And if you do that, you are granted the knowledge or gift that corresponds to that moment. Or you're granted the rizq, right? And rizq is divided into two types: physical rizq or spiritual, intellectual rizq. You are given what you are needed at that moment if you are paying attention, right? If you pay attention to the universe and what it is doing for you. So, because the servant does that, he wants to watch out, or she wants to watch out for what is happening to him or her at each and every moment, he or she knows that there is an obligation that must be discharged. There is an obligation that must be discharged at each and every moment as is appropriate. So if he or she sees that the gift comes from al-Wahhab, right, then he does not need to worry about whether this gift requires one to be thankful or requires one to do some kind of work in recompense, in compensation for receiving that gift. It's a pure gift. You don't have to do anything for it. You do not have to do anything in return for it, right? So he sees, but nevertheless, he is thankful, right? Or, yes, Irvina, go ahead.
How do you know that?
That's the question. Yes, exactly. How do you know which divine name it is, right? That is a whole other question, and it requires a lot of concentration. I'm not anything with regard to this path, right? So all I know how to do is to do infer what has happened to me, right? There are lots of times you consider, you're like, oh, I got this thing and I didn't do anything to deserve it. That's probably a gift. And so you show thanks. You don't need to do a work in compensation for that gift that is received. But if you, for example, want something and you've not received it, and you realize, okay, I've got to do this certain work in order to get it, and then you get it, you know you got it as a result of the work that you did. So for example, tahajjud is a big one, right? People want something. The ulama always say, ask for it in tahajjud, sometimes even up to a year. Then if you get the thing you want, you know it's a result of the work that you got, right? But if you receive something and that was through no effort of your own, it's probably a gift, right? So I guess these things through inference. Yes, ma'am.
Salam, Sidi. So if we do have an inference of what name might be at play at that moment for us, is it helpful to make dhikr with the name as well, to kind of try to understand what the appropriate action would be for us to do in order to be able to kind of reap the reward of that moment?
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, not necessarily. He hasn't said anything about that. The thing about dhikr is you only get the effect of the dhikr by doing lots of it. So you wouldn't have time to do it, right? Dhikr is something you spend like a lot of time doing in order to get the effect from it. But I don't see why not. If you want to mention the name, that's a good question. Really, that's a sort of question for like a Sheikh Murabbi, which I am not. Yeah, he'd be able to tell you, or she. That's definitely a question for a Sheikh Murabbi. Yeah, but it's a really good question. Okay. أو على يد الجبار فينظر في الموطن وما يستحقه, right? أو على يد الغفار فينظر المحال وما هو عليه. So if it's a gift from the all-compeller, the Jabbar, right? The one who forces, that's one thing. You see where is the appropriate place to use that gift. And if it's from the one who is all forgiving, then the all-forgiver checks to see whether you deserve punishment or not, right? If you do deserve punishment, then he protects you from the punishment, right? That's what the moment corresponds to. But if you do not deserve punishment, but still a gift from Al-Ghafar, then he's protecting you from falling into the action that would merit punishment in the first place, right? Right? So that kind of person would be ma'soom. He is divinely protected like a prophet and possibly a wali. But with a wali, we tend to say he or she is hafiz or mahfuz. They are, I'd have to find a different word, right? But a wali tends to be mahfuz and a prophet is ma'soom. That tends to be the distinction, right? That's why it says here, فيسمى معصوما ومعتني به ومحفوظا وغير ذلك مما شاكل على النوع, right? But in all cases, every single gift you receive, now, I've spoken about this before, but I'll repeat it briefly here. Anything you get, you know it's a gift from him. So if you treat it as a gift, then that is a path to actualizing your divinity, right? التخلق بأخلاق الإلهي, right? التخلق الأخلاق بالله. If you treat everything that happens to you in life as a gift and you adopt that frame of mind, that is a spiritual path in itself in which you can achieve the state of adorning yourself with the character traits of Allah, right? So Peter Kingsley points this out, and this is the path of Empedocles, right? Who was one of the ancient Greek philosophers, right? If you treat each thing that comes to you, if you treat each thing that comes to you as a gift, that's the path of Seth, who is the prophet for this chapter, and that's the path of Empedocles, right? Knowing that it all comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? That is a very high, noble spiritual path. Okay, can I get someone to read from فما يخرجه إلا بقدر معلوم up to the bottom. اسم آخر.
Can I go ahead?
Yeah, I was okay.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
So both of you, go ahead. See Muhammad Razi and say Bukhari. Bismillah. Go ahead.
مين أنا؟
Yes, or also Munira, but I think but I think they had their hands up first. So see Muhammad Razi, do you want to go? Then say Bukhari and then
yes.
Munira, please. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't see the hands. Bismillah.
It's all right.
فما يخرجه إلا بقدر معلوم على يد اسم خاص بذلك الأمر فأعطى كل شيء خلقه على يد العدل وإخوانه وأسماء الله لا تتناهى لأنها تعلم بما يكون عنها وما يكون عنها غير متناهٍ وإن كانت ترجع إلى أصول متناهية هي أمهات الأسماء أو حضرات الأسماء وعلى الحقيقة فما ثم إلا حقيقة واحدة تقبل جميع هذه النسب والإضافات التي يكنى عنها بالأسماء الإلهية والحقيقة تعطي أن يكون لكل اسم يظهر إلى ما لا يتناهى حقيقة يتميز بها عن اسم آخر.
Perfect. See Sayyid Bukhari and then Munira.
Okay. فما يخرجه إلا بقدر معلوم على يد اسم خاص بذلك الأمر فأخضع كل شيء خلقه على يد العدل وإخوانه وأسماه الله لا تتناهى لأنها تعلم بما يكون عنها وما يكون عنها غير متناهي وإن كانت ترجع إلى أصول متناهية هي أمهات الأسماء أو حضرات الأسماء وعلى الحقيقة فما ثم إلا حقيقة واحدة تقبل جميع هذه النسب والإضافات التي يكنى عنها بالأسماء الإلهية والحقيقة تعطي أن يكون لكل اسم يظهر إلى ما لا يتناهى حقيقة يتميز بها عن اسم آخر.
Thank you so much. Sayyid Bukhari, Bismillah.
Thank you very much. Actually, I raised the hand to ask the
Yeah.
question, but I'm
Oh, sorry.
reading it,
Bismillah.
and then I will ask the question. Let me read it, Uncle.
We're done reading. Go ahead. Ask me.
Okay. Okay. So my question was the difference between the Masoom and the Mahfuz. And
Yes.
it is very common, that difference. So how can we, know that the awliya are mahfuz? What exactly does that mean? But of course, we know that the anbiya are masoom.
Okay.
They are infallible.
So a prophet, like, there's no concept. There's no ability for a prophet to commit sin. Like, it's not even a concept. It's not a possibility. For a wali, it's a possibility. But if he is mahfuz, it's not going to happen. They say that someone who's mahfuz, he's even mahfuz from satanic whisperings, right? But it is within the realm of possibility if Allah has decreed it for that way to sin. It's not impossible. So Imam Junaid alayhi salam, he was asked this question: does a wali of Allah sin? And then his response to the man was that it is something that has been decreed. So it's possible for Allah to decree that even though this is a wali and he's mahfuz, but he's going to commit this particular sin. And then the wali can do tawbah and he regains his station. That person is mahfuz, right? That person is mahfuz if he has no satanic whisperings. But of course, because there's the possibility that he can sin, he's not a prophet.
Okay. Thank you. I mean, the only thing is that he doesn't get whispering from the Satan,
Yes, that's what I would say. By the way, there's more to the subject, but I'd have to look into it. But yes, I would say he does not even get the satanic whispering. And
even if he commits something, so he can say tawbah, and after doing tawbah, he can resume his station that he's already in.
Yes. So Sheikh Al-Akbar helped one man in this way. He lost his maqam because of something he did, and then he helps him regain it. This is absolutely possible, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for the beautiful question. So the Sheikh Al-Akbar returns to the question of the mother names, right? And we'll go back to the beginning of this passage. But I mentioned that the mother names are Al-Hayy, Wal-Alim, Wal-Murid, and Al-Qadir. Now, why is the universe built on these names? That's because every single object in the universe has a portion of one of these names. Whether you know it or not, whether you see it or not. So that means all objects are alive. They have life in them. A mountain that looks dead to you is alive. It has knowledge. A tree that looks quasi-alive to you, right? It's got some of the characteristics that necessitate biological life, but we don't really call it alive. It is alive, and it knows things. Animals, we already know, are alive, right? Your fingernails are alive. They have life in them, and they have knowledge, right? That's why on the day of judgment, your skin can testify against you. It has its own life, it has its own knowledge, right? Every object in the universe has life and knowledge and will. It can manifest its own will, right? And there are certain hadiths to that effect. And it has power. It can do things, right? And if you add to that the extra 3 attributes, speaking, hearing, right? Hearing, seeing, and speaking. There are trees that can speak, right? And they can hear. They have the ability to hear. Same with mountains. Objects that you consider inert. What happens to a wali is that he can hear, for example, stones doing tasbihat, right? They're saying subhanallah, 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 subhanallah. And then people say, oh, that's a miracle, right? But then Sheikh Al-Akbar will point out, no. That's not where the miracle is. That it's not where the miracle is. Why? Because they're always doing that anyways. they didn't just start saying subhanallah, right? It's the veil from your hearing that was lifted. The veil from your hearing that was lifted, and now you can hear them doing these things. This phenomena is very interesting, and it exists, but it exists under extraordinary spiritual conditions. If anyone has ever read the book by Viktor Frankl, right?
Man's Search for Meaning.
Yes, exactly. He mentions somewhere in the book that in the concentration camps, of course, in Auschwitz, there was a woman who was obviously dying. But she said, I can hear this tree talking to me. Was she delusional? Was she delirious? Or was the veil uncovered from her hearing? So the awliya have this, and they can speak to, or they can hear any object of existence speaking if Allah wills for them to do so, right? SubhanAllah, whispering trees. Yeah, thank you for that, Sidi Sahel. Yeah, that's a beautiful comment, Naham. Yes. So this is the belief. Because all objects of existence are built on these names, they have a share in these names. Are there any questions about this idea? Okay. And so these names are therefore not released or activated in a completely absolute manner. They're only given in proportion to what is required by a particular creation. فَأَعْطَى كُلَّ شَيْءٍ خَلْقَهُ. He didn't say al-khalq, خَلْقَهُ, with the damir, who. He gave each thing its creation, what it needs to become what it is. And this goes back to the question of the ayan al-thabita, the immutable entities. He only makes you the way you are because that's what you are in his eternal knowledge. He gives you what you need to be in order to achieve the manifestation of your ayn al-thabita, your immutable entity. So he has gifted each thing its creation, right? ثُمَّ هَدَى, then the verse completes, ثُمَّ هَدَى, and then he guides it to what it is meant to be, right? عَلَى يَدِ الْعَدْلِ, right? Through the divine name, the just one, the one who balances and proportions things. Now, Ibn Arabi says something interesting here, and you probably would have heard me say this before anyways, but وَأَسْمَاءُ اللَّهِ لَا تَتَنَاهَى لِأَنَّهَا تُعَلَمْ, right? بِمَا يَكُونْ عَنْهَا. The names of God have no end. They are infinite. Why are there an infinite number of divine names? And, if we talk about 99 names in our religion, then what's beyond 99 names? I put this as a question to you guys. What do you think?
The infinity of creation and infinite names.
Yes. How is this the case? Yes, Irvina, go ahead.
Is it a mixture of names as well?
Sure, it's a mixture of names as well. Yes, so that's also thinking along the right lines. Yeah, absolutely. The reason.
Can I add something, Dr. Faris?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so my teacher also said that it could be like, if a teacher tells you that there's 300 pages in this book, and if you memorize them, you're going to be good for the exam. Like, that's kind of what the hadith is like. So it's not saying there's only 99, but it's saying there's 99 that if you ahsa, then you enter Jannah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. So you're trying to find a textual evidence for more than 99 names. But the question is, so on top of this good observation, why is there an infinite number of names?
Because right? Allah's manifestations are infinite.
Yeah, and his manifestation is in creation, right? So good. So each object of existence is a name of God. Each object of existence is a name of Allah, right? The verse that supports this idea is, let me see if I can remember it. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الناس أنتم الفقراء إلى الله. What does that verse mean? Oh people, you are the poor ones towards God. You are poor and needy towards God. Now that verse has a tafsir, but beyond the tafsir, there is a blaringly obvious ishara. What's the obvious ishara in that verse? The obvious ishara is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not just expressing something for the sake of tafsir. He's making a statement of fact. It's not just balagha, it's not just rhetorical. It is a statement of fact. It is a statement of reality. You are in need of Allah. So it's not just that we need Him in order for us to exist, but whatever thing you need, that thing is Allah. Whatever thing you need, that thing is Allah. So if you are in need of food in this moment, Allah is food for you. If you are in need of knowledge, then Allah manifests Himself to you in the form of knowledge. So then, the name of knowledge in that particular form of knowledge, it's called Allah. If you need the particular knowledge of science, then that science is Allah. That's one of His names. If you need a particular form of literature, then that's one of His names with respect to knowledge, right? And if you love someone, then clearly that person, his name is Allah with respect to that ayah, because you are in need of that thing. That thing is Him, right? And that thing is the locus of manifestation for His divine names, right? So if you are in need of warmth, then Allah is warmth. What's the story in the Quran for that?
The burning
What's
bush.
the story for what again?
Yes, the burning bush. What is the story for someone needing warmth in the Quran? And that is Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam. He tells his family, wait, I'm going to search for a brand of flames that I might bring it back to you, or light a fire with it. So he was in need because he wanted to provide for his family. So he was striving for their sake. When you are in need of something, and this is one of the qualities of the Mahdi, by the way, and his helpers. When you are in need of something and you strive to fulfill that need for the sake of someone else, especially your family, Allah manifests Himself to you in accordance with your need. So Allah revealed Himself to Musa alayhi salam in the form of the fire. So this is why each thing in existence is a name of Allah. And that's why, therefore, His names have no end, because creation has no end. Because His creating, the act of His creating, has no end. He is forever creating. Because otherwise you do a ta'til of a divine attribute. But ta'til of a divine attribute is impossible. So He is therefore forever creating. So objects of creation are therefore forever emerging in existence, and that is why there is an infinite number of divine names. Nevertheless, even though they're infinite, they all go back to the universal divine names, the mother divine names. I told you there's 4, but you could also say that the 99 names are the universal names. So if I say, who is the nourisher? He is Ar-Razzaq, subhanahu wa ta'ala. What does He nourish us with? An apple? So an apple is a specific divine name. Ar-Razzaq is the universal divine name, because the apple is a specific instantiation of the nourisher. Corn is a specific divine name. Wheat is a specific divine name. But nourisher is the universal name that encompasses all those specific names. The nourisher is the universal name that encompasses those specific names. And nevertheless, there's only one reality, which is the divine reality. And this is because the divine names are non-existent. They don't have like a existence the way you and I exist in what is called extramental reality. The names are what you call relationships. They are non-existent relationships. So that's why it's Allah who is everything, doing everything.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Faris. May I answer a question?
Of course, please. And then Irvina, wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Go ahead.
I apologize. I should have raised my hand. So the question is, how much was Ibn Arabi influenced by Ash'arism? Because even when he talks about the four names, and then on top of those four names, three names, which make up the 7 attributes, that has Ash'ari roots. And similarly, the fact that there are infinite manifestations of the divine names. There's something called muta'allaq and muta'allaq, basically.
Yes.
Yeah, so I just wanted to know how much he was influenced by all of this.
He's totally influenced. There's no question about it. The question is, though, is he more influenced by Ash'ari kalam than he is, let's say, by Mu'tazili kalam, right? Because he takes the Ayan Thabita from Mu'tazili kalam, and the Ayan Thabita are a huge influence on his teachings. So there's no question that there's a significant influence on Ash'ari kalam on his entire system of thought, right? But the question is it more so than, let's say, Mu'tazili? And even more so than, let's say, falsafa, Islamic philosophy, right? There are scholars who want to say he is a complete Ash'ari from beginning to end. I don't buy that. I'm not persuaded by that. But I do think that he's probably more Ash'ari than he is, let's say, Mu'tazili, for example, right? But having said that, those are more like tools and, let's say, instruments, like an artist that uses to sketch what he wants to sketch. They don't determine his thought. They're more like instruments he uses to express and say what he wants to say. He's not really constrained by them. That would be the best way that I would like to describe it, if that makes any sense. But he is more Ash'ari than, let's say, other systems of thought.
MashaAllah. Jazakumullah khairan, Sidi.
Allah barak feek. Thank you, Sidi. Irvina.
Maybe we have discussed this question before, but what's the difference between the names and the attributes?
I'd have to think about that, because to me, they're almost identical. But there must be like a kalami distinction. People here with, because so I guess you got the asma, and then you've got the sifat. Those are the attributes, the sifat. People here of kalam. Yes, Mina, please tell us.
No, well, according to my understanding, the asma and sifat are almost one and the same, but in kalam, there's a specific category of صفات الله. So صفات نفسية وصفات سلبية, and
yes.
So they call it صفات because at that stage, perhaps it's not derived from Quran and Sunnah. It's more derived from at that stage we're in the ilahiyat, which is the very beginnings of proving the sifat of Allah. It's
yes.
It comes from logic. So it's logical equations, and hence they tend to use in kalam sifat. But the sifat are the asma.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But
no,
go ahead, please.
No, I was going to say I completely agree with you. Like, so they're basically the same thing, but they're given different names by different disciplines.
Precisely, yeah. But the other thing that on the Ash'ari influence on Sidi Muhammad ibn Arabi, so I remember a conversation I had with somebody who's more interested in majaz, and then she started being interested in Sidi Muhammad ibn Arabi and read him especially on his understanding of language. And one of the things that I found remarkable about yani her understanding, and please let me know what you think of that, is that she said Ibn Arabi had a problem with Ash'ari and Mu'tazili and most of Kalamis because to him, and I hope I can translate this correctly, to him, everything is in creation is a majaz to حقائق, and the حقائق is Allah, أو الحقيقة هي Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and his names. Meanwhile, the Kalamis, in order for them to approach God, they come from al-majaz, which is not reality, and which is centered in al-aql أو الحقائق العقلية, to reach conclusions about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Sidi Muhammad ibn Arabi, he is a saint before being a scholar, it's kashf to him. So there is somewhat of problematic. There is a problem in trying to understand Allah by logic in Sidi ibn Arabi's understanding, because logic in itself is a majaz. It's not.
Wow.
It's a metaphor. Everything is a metaphor, and the only reality is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you cannot reach truth by metaphor. You can reach, it's the other way around. It's the haqiqa, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, al-haqiqa al-wahida, and his attributes, al-haqa'iq al-asliya, that everything else is derived from.
MashaAllah. That is a really beautiful way to put it. And I think I agree with that 100%. Kalam has its use, but when it goes outside its proper boundaries, then problems start occurring. And it's like you said, you can't reach actual divine ma'rifah of Allah's reality through the aql alone. That is impossible, muhal or mustahil. And you need kashf to assist you, which comes from the prophetic legacy. I completely agree with that. Yeah, I completely agree with that. Jazakumullah khairan for sharing it. Yes, absolutely.
Oh, I just also what Mena was just saying reminded me of what Ali was talking about on the Day of Judgment when
exactly yes,
when the people see the revelations and see God in his forms that they believe him to have and deny him in the forms that they never accepted, but the standing behind and saying yes, this is Allah, and recognize Allah in all of the things, subhanallah. So the mind is the limiter in all the things, and Allah's, like you said, the unveiling is what lifts us out of that, subhanallah.
Right. And that's a really interesting point, because that takes us back to the text about having infinite number of names. Because then through the aql, you are denying some of his names. If you do inkar, denial of some of his manifestations. And this will tie into my upcoming course, of course, about religious diversity as well. So thank you so much for bringing that up, Hannah. Jazakumullah khairan. Yes, Muhammad Razi, go ahead.
I hope this is the right time to ask this question. The past week I've been struggling with this idea, especially like the whole Kalam versus Sufi metaphysics kind of thing. So I was just wondering about how, say we try to cultivate ourselves through a process of purification, tazkiyah and tasfiyah.
Yes.
So in order to gain knowledge of the divine, and that we deem to be certainly superior to what we gain through demonstrative knowledge through kalam. So but now thinking about myself, living we live in modernity, and it's not like there are Sufi institutions or lodges around where I can go and dedicate my life to internal purification. So I was wondering whether this understanding, this path, is it a little, I don't know, exclusive in a certain sense, and the demonstrative truths that like logic and kalam like gives us is much more like accessible to like people like who try to understand like the divine with the limits of reason. I hope I make sense. I don't know, like
Oh
maybe this is
yeah.
just like
No, you
misplaced.
make a lot of sense. No, completely. By the way, these zawiyas do exist. They're still around.
Yeah, they do exist, but I was just talking about say like
you could go there, but yes, whether it's practical to devote your entire life to it is a different story. But yes.
yeah,
Yes, exactly.
that was what I wanted to say. Not
Of
not
course.
denying their existence. Yeah, I didn't mean
Yes,
that.
yes,
Sorry.
yes, yes. No, not at all. Not at all. It's such a good point. But this one of arriving at the burhan, right? Burhani demonstration is also exclusive, but it's probably less exclusive than this other path. I mean, no, not really. Actually, I'm going to change my mind. The Sufi path is more inclusive. Because if you're a dummy like me and you find logical demonstrations a bit challenging, right? Philosophical burhan demonstrations are not that hard, but I mean, if you start getting into it quite seriously, it is an exclusive club for the intellectual elite. Like, how many Ibn Sinas are there? It's hard to make another Ibn Sina, right? And so on and so forth. That path is more exclusive because you have to have a very strong intellect in order to pursue that path. If you wanted to pursue the other path of being a Sufi, cleansing the heart, really, everyone can do that. Now, if you wanted to dedicate yourself and your entire life to that path, sure, that requires more effort, but it's more open to everyone. Anyone can do it. Intellectual demonstration, not everyone can do it.
Yeah.
Because you have to have like a pretty solid intellect to do it. But to pursue the Sufi path, more people can do it. Not everyone can do it, but more people can do it because the requirement is just ittiba al-nabi. That's it. Ittiba al-sunnah. But you take it seriously. Anyone can do that. Of course, if you pursue the path of having kashaf, yeah, that is exclusive too. You're right. Not everyone can do kashaf.
I like, can we not, I mean, this is just silly to ask. Do we get like smaller dosages of like kashif just if we like do good things, like keep like like avoiding like backbiting other people and like doing little things, good things, like do
everyone,
we like
everyone experiences small doses of kashif, but you just don't call it that. It's called intuition. It's called intuition. So Sheikh Al-Akbar says, if I'm not misquoting him, a'udhu billah, if you like his works when you're reading them and you feel like an attraction to them, you feel an affinity towards them, that is a kind of kashf that Allah granted you. And through that, you know that your attraction and affinity to the spirit of his writing and his spirit is sound and it's real because it's not subject to doubts the way logical demonstrations are subject to doubts. It's not subject to doubt, right? So that is a kind of kashf for you, and that is a kind of glad tiding for you. But yes, there's all sorts of kinds of intuitions that we could call mini kashafat. Yeah. Sorry, Hannah and Zanira, go ahead.
Oh, assalamu alaikum. My phone died, so I don't even actually answered it, so I had to rush up somewhere else. But no, it was just what you were saying about the question about whether the Sufi way, and it just reminded me of Sidi Ali again, Allah bless him, about the how he said at the beginning how previously in the old days everybody was like the Sufis, the music, the poetry that was accessible for all the people, and the scholars were like the tiny minority of people who had access to scholarly knowledge. And so even in a way that the question which way round is actually a sign of it being all upside down now, that we've got so much overemphasis on the scholarly that we think that is maybe the best way that we can go forwards, and that the Sufi thing isn't accessible is kind of a sign of, seems to me, like what he was talking about there.
That's such a brilliant point, by the way. Thank you for raising it. So, for example, everything you're reading, like without exaggeration, in Fusus al-Hikam, it's all in Rumi. If you prefer to read Rumi, just read Rumi. It's pretty much all there. And the poetry is very accessible. Zanira, go ahead. Sorry, Hannah, if you have finished.
Yeah, I just wanted to also add that, yeah, like I really agree with that. Like I went to university and my philosophy wasn't my major, but I remember I was in philosophy, like basic, like philosophy 101, logic and critical thinking class. And we had this like syllogism, which was like A and B, therefore A. And the example that the professor gave was, I had a coffee and donut for breakfast, therefore I had a donut for breakfast. And my friend, who was also in the philosophy class, and I don't think she's dumb or anything, she just didn't get it. She was like, what do you mean? I was like, if you had a coffee and a donut, did you have a donut? And I just kept explaining to her and she didn't get it. And then I think the way that philosophy is taught, at least, isn't actually accessible to most people. Maybe, yeah, like, people can be at different levels of intellect, but everybody is at a certain level of their nafs, which the Sufi path has some sort of guidance to offer with, right? Like, regardless of what level of purification you might be at, there's something in the Sufi path for you. Whereas it doesn't, like, philosophy doesn't have anything to offer for you if you're at a certain level of intellect. Like, you need a bare minimum, like, standard in order to get to Burhan, to be able to, like, understand. Yes. And you're never actually going to understand God through that. The other thing, this was a question that I had about, like, just going back to difference between names and attributes. And one of my teachers said that, it's like essence versus doing, or like what God is in and of himself versus how God acts in creation. And like, so who God is the name, whereas, for example, al-Khaliq is the name, and this is who God is regardless of whether, even before he created anything, he's Khaliq. Whereas Khaliq as-samawati wal ard, for example, is an attribute. But for example, if we like make, I don't want to say duality because there's no duality, but there's also duality. Like if we say, for me, it's like in terms of al-Hayy versus Muhyi, right? Like a being, a name of being and a sense versus a name of action or causation. So like, do you think those two things are different? And like in terms of like God's beingness, so for example, God's life, the fact that God is life in one way, and that God is ever living, that's where we access life from, that versus al-Muhyi, like the causer of life or the giver of life. Do you think those are like, do you think we can make that duality? Like, does that split exist, or is it just like one? And that's just like my, I guess my brain or logical mind's way of understanding, or trying to understand the difference between Isma and Sifat. But it could be anything. But I feel like there isn't. Like, that's just my feeling. And I feel like if we do that, we sort of like blend, like steer away from Tawheed in a way, saying that who God is and what God does are two different things. Or like what God causes to happen are like two different things. Like for me, Muhyi is a name. Anything that God does that is causative, that is a name of God. That is who God is, like regardless of, whether he does it.
So let me answer this. Okay. So first of all, your point about the Sufism and Burhan, Jazakallah khairan. That's a beautiful example. Absolutely. And secondly, for this question, I will say I don't really know the answer that much. That's a very deep question. What I will say very briefly is that there is these things what are called the asma al-af'al and the asma al-sifat. Yes. And then on top of that, there are the asma of that. Just to keep it very brief. The names of the actions and the names of the attributes. So like al-Hayy would be a name of an attribute, and al-Muhyi would be the name of the actions, right? So you could make that distinction. Yes. without getting too deep into your question, which I probably can't answer fully right now. But yeah, that's a very deep question. Thanks for asking it. Jazakallah khairan. Yes, are there any other questions? And so like we're gonna wrap up in about a couple of minutes, okay? If anyone wants to ask a last question. I think like we're not gonna do any more reading. Let's just say we stop here. كما أن العطاءات تتميز كل عطية عن غيرها بشخصيتها. Okay, we'll stop there. Yeah, see Joshua, if you could just mark that box. So that's 21. Yeah, are there any other questions? I think we're out of time, right? This is a good time to stop.
Can you hear me? The last question.
So, sorry, Noor, is that you? I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yes.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I'm not certain that I understand that everyone needs to have a bit of the level of intelligence to go forward with what you explained, because I think intelligences these days are of different types. I see myself there where some things I have degrees and stuff, but sometimes I go to these villages and the people, things they're doing there, it's only that they can understand. I feel like I don't have the intelligence they have. So I feel like intelligences are of different type, and knowledge is accessible in one way or the other to different types of intelligences. It's just that I feel like there's bridge between these intelligences, different types of intelligences.
Yes, I fully agree. But the question was, which one is more accessible? But I fully agree with you. There's different kinds of intelligences. Absolutely. Yes.
Can I just pop in there with a little story about you probably know it. There was some really high Poloi Sufi types walking along, and they saw a young boy doing dhikrs and he was saying black and white, black and white, black and white. So they said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm doing dhikr Allah, black and white." No, this isn't how you do it. This is la ilaha illallah, la ilaha illallah. And then they walked off and walked across the river, walking on water. And then the boy came running after them across the water saying, "Excuse me, what was that dhikr you were telling me about?" Yeah, so it's about the sincerity in the heart. It doesn't have to be like being super duper Mr. Clever Clogs.
Just a last example is there are a lot of times I don't understand abstract theories in computer science, and I go knitting or I do something gardening, and then I start understanding these concepts because I start seeing them there in those patterns. These formulas start making sense to me. So,
Noor, that's incredible, because then there's a connection between gardening and computer science. Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. SubhanAllah. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And Hannah, that that by the way, that's it. It's the sincerity that grants you the efficacy of the name. Yeah, Jazakallah khairan. Yeah, but there was, before Muhammad Razi, who was there? There was Yusha. Yusha, go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. I wanted to ask about the concept of intuition. If you mentioned it before in contrast to cash, and I wanted to understand that more.
I'm just using the word intuition in a very loose way, okay? But kashaf is obviously, and if you know this, you can stop me, but kashaf is a Sufi, very spiritual, I guess, technique, which they use, which you could translate as unveiling physical matter in order to see what is behind that physical matter and see the reality behind that physical matter. So you could say the spiritual reality behind that physical object, right? So that's called unveiling. Even possibly revelation, although revelation is more like wahi, right? But intuition is just a word that I used to describe a very pale version of kashf, a very much smaller version of kashf, because we all do it. But when it's just your general intuition, something that you are perceiving with your basira, because we all have basira, that's a very small kind of kashf. But when you actually see something which is properly, that requires spiritual talent, that's called kashf, right? Like a wali, he goes into a lunchroom, the food is put on the table, he sees the food in the form of something haram, like a bloody corpse or swine or alcohol, and he says, I'm not touching this. But then the folks say, what's wrong with it? It's just food. And they say, and he says, no, I'm not touching it. And that's because his kashf gave him the reality that this is normal food, but it was acquired through haram money. So his kashf is telling him not to eat it. So that's kashf, okay?
All right, thank you. I had in terms of intuition, maybe a similarity to knowledge by presence in mind.
Suhrawardi? Suhrawardi al-Maqtul?
Yeah, kind of, or I think Sayyid al-Attas also
yes.
of it. And I would like, for me, or just in how I read it, is that it's kind of a higher form of intellectual understanding. So maybe kind of in between kashf and kind of an aqli understanding, but I don't know.
Maybe. But when someone like Suhrawardi al-Maqtul talks about it, he means it as a dhawq, right? When Shaykh al-Akbar talks about kashf, he means dhawq. Is there something in between? Yeah, there probably is, but I don't know it. Maybe what you're talking about is something that they call a higher ratiocination. But you know who's your man for that? Sayyidina Hassan Spiker.
Thank you.
Thank you. See, Muhammad Razi, go ahead. So Muhammad Razi, then Suhail, last question, and then we'll call it a day. Go ahead.
I just wanted to bring up what I asked earlier about the essence, gift of the essence and the gift of the.
Yeah, but okay. So I want to look at that again. Can you write it down in the chat room? I'll look at it again and I'll send you a voice note.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Sure, thank you. Thank you, Sidna. Suhail, go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to share a few thoughts regarding the path of tasawwuf and the path of kalam.
Yes, please.
So the way we were taught in the madaris is that they are complementary. They're like not two opposite ways. So there are two types of istidlal. There's istidlal inni and there's istidlal limmi. The istidlal inni is going from the effect to the cause, meaning understanding the cause using the effect. And istidlal limmi is understanding the effect from the cause, right? And so basically, if we can reach God through His creation. We can also understand His creation through Him by the way He explains it to us. And there's another component to it, which we call istidlal shibh limmi, the istidlal that resembles the limmi istidlal, which is going from the cause to the effect. Because when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's no cause for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you're actually understanding the cause from the cause, right? So that's actually, these are three categories that people are interested, they can look into. But they're all complementary. It's not like one is against the other. And regarding the sifat, basically in kalam we have sifat al-ma'ani and sifat al-ma'nawiyya. Sifat al-ma'ani or al-hayy, life, power, hearing, seeing, and al-sifat al-ma'nawiyya are the nouns for those sifat, which are basically al-qadir, all right, al-sami', al-basir. So they're both called sifat, even though one of them we would call a noun in English rather than perhaps an attribute, depending on how we use it, I guess. So just wanted to add that piece of information to the conversation.
Sayyidina, Jazakallah khairan, that is extremely true and helpful and useful. Yes, kalam and tasawwuf are complementary, of course, in the same way that tasawwuf and fiqh are complementary, of course.
Okay.
It is completely false to say that they are opposed to one another. Na'udhu billah. Yeah, thank you so much for saying that. The only question with kalam arises when it tries to, if some people try to take it outside its proper boundaries, then it becomes an issue, right? But if you know its proper role and what role it should play in respect to its relationship with tasawwuf and even the higher metaphysics, al-ilahiyat, of course, if you keep within its proper boundaries, then it's a very powerful complementary tool, and you're absolutely right.
100% agree. Barakallah fikum.
MashaAllah. Allah barik fik, Sidna. Thank you so much. Iman, last question, please.
Yes, I just wondered about a couple of things. If everything is frequency and we have different brain waves and we can fluctuate between different brain waves, and modalities like it's like understanding at a certain level, would you be like on the same vibration, the same frequency? Just wondered about this is the accuracy of this, or it hasn't been mentioned by any of the scholars or not. And is clairvoyance is kashf or not, or is it's like the more or less is the different meaning of it?
You tell me, what is clairvoyance? Do you
Clairvoyance,
mean do you mean firasa? Firasa?
No. Clairvoyance can be audio or audio capabilities, like can be visual, can be so many different capabilities that can be enhanced, like in like trained kind of that some people actually believe in, like it's kind of tazkiyah lin-nafs in a way, but obviously it has a path of knowledge or learning. So it's in visual, audio capabilities, like several layers.
Yeah, but give me one example so I understand you exactly.
Okay, the audio capabilities like hearing as kind of like understanding what you hear, the truth about certain words, or another layer of when you are hearing, or you're hearing something like when you mentioned the whisper. You wonder that some people have this capability of hearing something, and with it's like it is how can I hear? It's like this is considered audio.
You know, like for example, there are some awliya, they can hear your thoughts.
Yes, exactly. That's another audio capability.
Yeah.
That's exactly the same word.
This is all kashaf.
Okay, got yeah.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, and frequency-wise, has it been mentioned? Because if I'm understanding hadith properly or anything, or it's like where if someone is asi or not really welcome, and the Prophet would always open his robe and get him to sit next to him. When in guidance of certain people, of course, and this is like as close as it can be in frequency-wise. So it can be like people would be transformed because of the frequency before anything else. And the level of understanding, if I'm in the same frequency of a book or a learning or anything, that's probably because I am on the same wavelength or same vibration or the same frequency.
I want to say yes, but I don't know how frequencies work. You know, but it's like you're saying, because you're using a word that is like a semi scientific word to mean something like the heart, for example, and the ruh. So yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Like you sit in the presence of Rasulullah and you're transformed just by looking at his face. Yeah, it's
exactly.
true.
Yes.
Yeah, that's all. That's all true. Yes.
And when you mentioned it's when you read any or you're attracted to listen to anything to Ibn Arabi, that's a frequency. And you have to.
Yes.
I think so. Okay, thank you so much for that. Thank you. Thank you.
That is completely true. Allah barak fikum. Okay. Thank you so much, people for coming and attending. Please, newcomers, if you have any questions, put it in the chat room. Don't be shy. And it was lovely having you all. Okay. Thank you so much for coming, and we'll see you next time, inshallah. May I make a humble request? If any of you are on, if you see me putting stories on my Instagram page, it would be helpful if you are able to repost them, if it's possible, if it does not interfere with the aesthetic of your Instagram page, and that will help maybe generate more people for the upcoming course on May 7th, inshallah, if you're able to. And thank you so much. Allah barak fikum. Thank you. Goodbye. Assalamu alaikum.
جزاكم الله خيرا. السلام عليكم.
Alaikum salam. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. جزاكم الله كل خير.
Allah barak fikum. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Jazakumullah kulla khair. It was amazing as usual. Thank you so much.
Hi, Sahar. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Mona. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right. MashaAllah. Bye-bye.